Hey there guys, Josh Doyle, Training Officer, Innisfil Fire Rescue. For this first video we're just going to discuss the proper procedure for using the air cylinder filling station, that's station 2. One thing we want to talk about when we're going through the system is that we want to follow the manufacturer's recommendations on how to fill, and that's through Jordair specifically. There's a book that's kept in the air that you can look through as well. We've also placed all the directions directly on the machine so you can follow it if you're not sure. If there isn't a full-time staff available to help you through this and you've never used it, please ask for direction. Don't be just trying to figure it out, all right? So when we come into the station, we want to make sure the first thing is that our filling station is turned on, that we have air coming into the system. From there, we want to just check to make sure that we have inlet pressure, and we want to make sure that our regulator gauge has been set at 4,500 PSI. That's what we fill our 60-minute Scott cylinders to, 4,500 PSI. All right, not to be confused with the 2200s that Bradford West Willowmere may come to fill here. All right, so once we've done that, what we want to do is we want to check to make sure that the cylinder that we're filling is we have the quick connects on these Scott cylinders here, 60-minute, 4,500 PSI. One thing I want to check for is that before I put it into the filling station, I want to check the actual cylinder, make sure that there's no large gouges out of the wrapping, make sure there's no burn, char marks on it, make sure everything looks like it's intact, make sure that the blow-off valve hasn't been damaged, all right? As well as I want to check the hydrostatic test date on it. On this one here, it's 5th month of 2015. The cylinders are good for 5 years for composite wrap cylinders, all right? So once that's done, what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to open up the cage door. This is the fragmentation door, so that if something was to blow up, this is going to keep us safe, right? So I'm going to release that tab there. It's going to open that door. I'm going to open it up here. So on this filling station here, we do have an option of filling a 2200 16 PSI cylinder. That is the yellow connections on the back of this machine here. So that is not to be confused with the greens are the ones that we're always going to be using to fill all of Innisfil Fire's air cylinders. All right. So once I've inspected the pack or the cylinder, I'm going to put it in the machine here. I'm going to remove the protective dust cover on these ones because we do not need them on our SCBA packs, the Scott X3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this onto it. All right, you don't need to over tighten, just make sure that it's nice and snug. I want to make sure that I close the brass bleeder valve on the actual line there. And on these Scott air cylinders, there is a one-way check valve in them. So to fill them, you do not have to open the main valve on the stem of the cylinder, all right? So just to be clear with that. So if we were gonna fill multiple cylinders, we would fill all the banks that we have here, and then we would hook them up the same way with the line and using the bleeder valve. Once that's done, I'm gonna close the defragmentation door, make sure it's locked. I'm gonna come over to the main panel of the filling station here. As you can see, they're all clearly labeled cylinder filling number 1. This is the valve for number 1, right? Number 2, valve number 2. So the corresponding valves are always going to be where the actual regulator gauges are, all right? So on this one here, I'm going to be filling number 1, and what we want to do is we want to make sure we always check, right? So that's number 1, right? Back here, I'm going to open one of my cascades. Now, generally when we fill these cylinders, you want to open one cascade at a time. You don't want to open them all, you want to open one and then fill it until it's equalized pressure. Once it's done that, you can close the one cascade system and move on to the next one. All right, so obviously when we're opening up one of the cascades to fill the cylinder, we want to make sure that when we're opening these valves, they are made of plastic. So when you're opening and closing them, you don't have to be you don't have to reef them. Just make sure that you're just hand tightening them, right? They are meant to break, but the issue is that we don't want to have to keep replacing them, right? So when you get to the end, just maybe a little turn back, right? So now I've opened cascade number 1. When I open cylinder number 1, this will fill that cylinder up. So as I fill that up, this cylinder is slowly going to equalize. Once these gauges have equalized, if the cylinder is not fully, what we'd have to do is we would come back to cascade number 1. We would close cascade number 1. The end, hang tight. I'm going to go cascade number 2, then I would open up cascade number 2. We would continue doing this until the cylinders were all full at 4,500 psi. The idea is that we don't want to crash fill them. If you open up all the cascades, you can crash fill them, which means you're going to heat them up, which means that you won't be able to have a full cylinder of air, or you'll have to wait and let them cool down and then top them up again. So the idea is that you move from cascade to cascade, equalizing until all the cylinders are full. So once we've done that, we can come back, we can check to see that our cylinder is at 4,500 psi. Same thing, shut them off, hand tight, you don't have to over tighten them. Once that's done, we can come back to the fragmentation cabinet, open it up, just verify on the gauge on the head of the cylinder that it's full. Open your cleaner, clean off the excess air that's in the line. Once that's done, you can repeat that for all the cylinders. Once that's complete, we're going to undo the collar. If you have more cylinders that you need to fill, I would keep that off. If you're done with it, then you should attach it, just as good housekeeping etiquette. Make sure to put the dust cover back on the cylinder. And again, this is cylinder number 80. So after we've filled it, we need to make sure that we come to the Innisfil Fire and Rescue air cylinder fill log, cylinder number 80. I'm going to date it. I completed a visual inspection, and I'm going to sign for it. And we need to make sure that we do this for every cylinder that we fill. So, if you are not sure, there are instructions on the door for how to fill the air cylinder here, as well as there are through Scott Safety directly how to do a proper inspection of the breathing air cylinder if you're not sure. So hopefully that answers some of your questions on how to use the air refilling station here at Station 2 for Innisfil Fire. If you have any questions, please email me, jdoyle@innisfil.ca. That's it for July's training. Have a good night.